Alright, so quick review of lesson 58, which is where we left off at the end of last semester. Okay. And the distance problem, you guys remember our rates and our ratios. Okay, it might not always use that word explicitly, or what that word means. Anyone help me with explicitly? Destiny? In detail, also, can you add a little to that? I said it was very explicit that she disobeyed the rules. How would you interpret that? Don't know? Okay, explicit is kind of an in-your-face. It's not necessarily going to read word for word the word rate or ratio. Should we guys up please? Okay, rate or ratio. So it's not necessarily going to be in your face, but you'll see it. So if it was very explicit that she chose to not follow directions, it would be if I just walked over and punched you, and I was standing right there looking. No attempt to hide it, right? So explicit means no attempt to hide. Okay, does that make sense? Yes? Okay. So, not explicit, might not say rate or ratio, but if you see a something per something, or like a miles per hour, you see that per, right? So we know that any mile per hour, as a crochet, is a ratio, or a rate. Okay? So, keeping in mind, you might not be told write the rate, but you're going to have to write the rate. Bottom line. Okay? So, our distance problem, 60 miles per hour. We said the per could be written as a word or as that slash. 60 miles per hour. Or in this case, we could change that to 60 mph. So the per is now that little p in the middle, right? The little p in the middle only works for miles per hour. So, okay? Any questions on that? Kind of a quick rewind. So if you're given a piece of information, let's say 60 miles per hour is the information you're given. And then the extra piece they give you in addition would be 5 hours. Let's go with, 5 hours. So how would we calculate how far 5 hours is? If I were to drive a car at 60 miles per hour for 5 hours, Damon, what would I need to do with my piece of extra information? I'll remind you, we've got our plus sign. Miles on the bottom. Why? We have hours on the top over here. Our job is always to what? With whatever's on the top, what's your job, Damon? To cancel. So is miles going to make hours cancel? Miles and hours are the same thing and they wipe each other out? No, they're not. So we need it exactly the same so they can wipe each other out. So what needs to go on the bottom instead?
Yeah.
You said hours? No, I thought you said miles. You said hours, I apologize. Right, so if hours is on the bottom, what's on the top, Damon? Miles. Then we go back to our rate or ratio over here, even though it wasn't explicitly called that. So Damon, is 60 going to go on the top or the bottom? The top. So, what do we do across the top, crochet?
Multiply.
We multiply. Can you tell me what 5 times 60 is?
130.
Careful. 5 times 6. And add a 0. 5 times 6 and add a 0.
300.
300. Good. So 300. And if these cancel, what are you left with, crochet? Still got a unit. We always have to have a unit for these. Miles, exactly. 300 miles. So the original question I asked you was how far could you drive in 5 hours? Well, that makes sense, right? And that answer is an answer that if I asked you, Jamaica, how far did you walk? Hopefully Jamaica didn't walk 300 miles. It would be a long walk, right? But 300 miles makes sense if it's a how far question. Okay? Make sense? I know that was a quick review. Any questions on that? Alright, so we are going to look at some proportions with fractions. Completely different than rates and ratios, but related to our fractions and our cross multiplication. Okay? So proportions with fractions. I need all eyes on 189. It's going to be the main lesson for the day. We did learn 58 last semester, 59 we're going to pick up for new stuff this semester. Okay? So, No change when you're working with fractions and numbers. You just got to remember how we manipulate fractions and how they work in multiplication and addition and subtraction and division, right? Alright, so, eyes up here for me. If I've got 6 over x equals 3 over 2. Okay? And we said it's related to cross multiplication. Jamika, do you remember the rules to cross multiplication? How would I set up this equation to solve for x? Good. 6 times 2. We don't have to solve yet, we're just figuring out the equation. So we've got this one taken care of. What do we do after we do that? Up over. There it is. We circle our equals, we put equals, and what does it equal? 3x. Perfect. The other side. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Okay? Step 1, step 2, step 3. So Jamika, if it's 3 times x, how do we undo times 3? 5. Careful. How do we undo times 3? The answer to that is always exactly the opposite function but the same number. Okay, so divide by 3. Good. We divide off the 3. Kind of like we said with Damon. Those 3's, top and bottom, need to wipe each other out, so the only thing we have left is x. Okay, so that's what they do. And we need to remember, when there's an equal sign involved, whatever we do to one side of the equal sign, crochet,
We're gonna do to the other.
we're going to do to the other. Exactly. Okay? So now we've got just x left on this side, which is what we want. And we've got 6 times 2 over 3. Destiny, what do you get if you do 6 times 2 over 3? 4. Exactly. 4. So if we look back at our original equation, 6 over 6 times 2 is
4.
6 times 2 is what?
Divided by 3.
There you go. Good. So 6 over 4. And if we think about reducing fractions, right? To get from 6 to 3, Damon, what would you need to do? What kind of math function? To get from 6 to 3 with multiplication or division, how would you get from 6 to 3? You need to take 6 and divide it by 5. To get from 6 to 3, take 6 and divide it by 2. Exactly. So we take 6, we divide it by 2, we got 3. We take 4 and we divide it by 2. What do you get, Damon? 2. Is that what our original equation looked like? So you've done it correct. Okay? Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Now, you guys are clear on cross multiplication with plain old numbers. But now we're going to sneak those fractions in and work with those guys. All right? So instead of this 6 up here, we're going to replace it with a 2 over 3. And instead of this 3, we've got 5 over 8. And instead of this 2, we've got 1 over 5. Okay? So, I made Jamika set this one up for me, so let's go with crochet. Crochet, how am I going to set up this equation? Can I erase this? Are you good? Okay. How am I going to set up my new equation? We said it's going to be the same as regular numbers, it just involves some fractions now instead.
What is over there?
2/3 over x equals 5/8 over 1/5.
2/3 times 1/5
Perfect.
equals.
Good. So she did step 1 equals step 2. Now step 3.
5/8 over 8.
Careful.
5/8.
What did you do here? You took 2/3 and multiplied it by 1/5.
Oh, times 8.
There you go. Times x. Okay. Now these, if we wanted to simplify our fraction on the other side first, that's totally fine. Or if you want to get your x by yourself and then do all the math together, also fine. Just own your process and we'll be good to go. Okay. So Destiny, which way do you want to do it? You want to divide or figure out x by itself and then do the math, or simplify and then figure out x? Okay, let's simplify. So what are you going to get on this side? 2 over 15. And that's equal to what, Destiny? 5 over 8. all she did was just do a little bit of the math. She simplified it down. She reduced first. Okay? So Demond, now that she's reduced for us, we only have two fractions of the problem. What do you want to do next? What's your whole goal? As I step here, what's your job in a problem that looks like this? The whole thing, the whole function of this problem is to just what are you trying to accomplish with this problem? Don't make it too hard. What don't you know in this problem? X. So your whole job in this function, this problem, is to solve for x. Okay, so how are you going to get x? Solve 8 over 5. Okay, what are you going to do with 8 over 5? Times 5 over 8. So we're going to multiply by what? Come on, what's that called? What's that called? It is a fraction. If this is 5 over 8, what is this to that? If this is your original fraction, what is this fraction called in relation to this fraction? Review of terms. It's not improper. Well, it is improper. You're right. I'm sorry. You know it? Exactly. What is it, Demond? A reciprocal. Perfect. So, Demond, you multiplied by 8 over 5 on this side. What's missing? Not yet. Before you cancel. Exactly. Whatever we do on that side, we got to do on the other side. Now they can cancel. And you're left with just x. And we can do our math. Okay? Is anything on the top cancel with the bottom? Tamika, is anything on the top cancel with anything on the bottom? And 8, does 8 have anything coming to 5 or 15? I mean, what can they be reduced by or simplified? So like 8 on the top, 4 on the bottom would be you can divide them both by 4, right? And then would both divisible by anything? Nothing in common, right? So that, Tamika, what is 8 over 5 times 2 over 12? Do the top part for me. X is going to equal this math right here.
But you didn't say 2 over 2.
I didn't mean to say 2 over 12, I did. 8 over 5 times 2 over 15 is going to give you what? X is going to equal. Good. Think about a clock. How many times around in 15 is a clock? Good. Go back to our clock real quick. Think about a clock. 15, 30, 45, 60. So that's 4 15s, right? You add another 15 to 60, you get 75. Make sense? Make sense? Crochet? Thank you. Alright, 16 over 75. Can't reduce, so that's our final answer. That's our x. Okay? Alright. Sometimes x isn't going to always be in that bottom left spot. X can move around. But no matter where x is, we're going to solve these in exactly the same way, right? So, let's get rid of all those. And we've got x over 3/4 and 1/3 and 2/5. Okay? 1/3 and 2/5. So, move this side just in case we couldn't see. Damon, will you set this one up for me? Here's my problem. So set it up for me. Set up the equation. X moved. He's now on top over here instead of on the bottom. 2/5 x. Okay, so you did step 1. What's step 2? Equals. Step 3? Huh? Okay. Times 3 over 4. Good. Alright, Crochet. Do you want to simplify first or get x by itself first?
Get x by
Okay? How are we going to get x by itself? Do we
Let's
always
simplify.
look at this? Do we simplify first? Okay, she changed her mind. You can simplify first, that's fine.
3, 3, 1, 1.
3, 3, 1, 1.
Okay, 3, 3.
3, gotcha. Yep, 3, 3, 1, 1. So my new fraction is? 1/4. Good. 1/4 equals what? 1/4 equals, careful. You drop this down. You did the math, right? Was there any math to do here?
No.
Nope, so just pull him down.
Well,
Yep, rewrite him.
2.
1/4 equals 2/5 x. Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay? Alright, so now that we've got our x, we need to get x by himself. That's what our whole job is always to be. So Jamaica, how am I going to get x by himself? Right now it's x times 2/5. 5? Exactly. And if you divide by a fraction, the same as what? If I divide by 2/5. What do we say? We've got a fraction here. Remember how we divide by fractions? What do you do? Exactly. Keep, change, and when that flips, what does it become? Well, that's what he is. So we're keeping him. That's the guy we're multiplying by, right? So anytime you divide by 2/5, so we're just trying to figure out what you're going to do to both sides. So we're going to divide by a fraction.
5 times 5 over 2.
Exactly. Okay, what's missing before I do my math and move forward? You multiply by 5 over 2 here. If I add something to my equation, what must I do? Or I give something extra to my equation. Don't know? Can someone help her out? I sometimes phrase it differently. I just want to make sure that you don't always hear the same phrase, because you gotta. Yep, so Jamaica here, she multiplied by 5 over 2 on this side. We said anytime there's an equal sign, Destiny said it, you have to do the same thing to both sides. So if I take this and this side and multiply it by 5 over 2, what else must I do, Jamaica? Exactly. I have to multiply the other side by 5 over 2 also. Okay? So now these, they do what we want. They cancel off, so all we've got left is x. And we've got 1/4 times 5 over 2. So Damon, what does x equal in this equation? 5 over 8. Okay? 5 over 8. So, that's the whole process for you. Take it from here, do your cross multiplication. 1 cross equal to the other cross multiplied. Set it up, simplify first like Portia did, like Destiny did on that side, okay? And then we can solve and get our x equals 5 over 8. Any questions on those? Alright, I want you guys to do the practice problems. There are 4 of them. So 4 practice problems. Question on this stuff?